This is Guyana, what could become one of the richest countries in the world thanks to the giant oil fields offshore. But today, this is Georgetown, virtually paralyzed. And if you argue it isn't, then it soon could become if the protracted electoral process is not concluded and if there is no decisive leadership springing from a legally elected government in place. It is now 2 months since Guyanese went to the polls in what was described as the mother of all elections, but a winner is yet to be declared. It has to be one of the longest elections, if not the longest, since this country became a republic 50 years ago. We dare say it has been the longest any democracy has seen, yet alone one with just about 500,000 voters. It is certainly one of the most notorious elections this country has ever witnessed. No one thought that with modern technology and live broadcasting that electoral fraud could be attempted. But we were all in for a very ugly surprise.
Good morning to everyone. Today is the day when all of Guyana will exercise their franchise. And I'm very hopeful and prayerful that we would also have an incident-free election day.
March 2nd, the Pearl Nursery School, the pride of this village, located some 16 miles from the capital, Georgetown. It is here that President David Granger chose to vote. Just after sunrise, the President, his wife Sandra and daughter Afua made their way to the polling station and voted. Many had already lined up to vote. The importance of the elections was driven home on the political platforms. The process of voting was relatively easy and simple and went without glitch. Well, almost. And the President was not one to pass on the moment to throw in a joke.
The only problem is that there was a little plastic cap in the ink and it took some time to remove it. But I have a slow hand. I am a patient person. So.
If you're wondering what that reference to a slow hand was all about, it was this, when the First Lady caused an uproar at the women's rally the coalition held before the elections.
I want a man with a slow hand.
There were long lines at every polling station one could witness from the public roads across the country.
Mr. Irfan is walking into the polling station and here he is. Any comments? Any comments?
As soon as I come out, I'll give you a comment. Thank you very much.
Across the river at Lenora, West Coast Demerara, the President's challenger, Irfan Ali of the PPP. While the media was allowed in to witness the President voting, there were no such arrangements for the media when Irfan Ali voted. However, that process also went smoothly.
Well, the process is a very simple process, and it went smoothly. I was able to cast my ballot.
Back in Georgetown, the Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM, was pleased at how the process started.
At the end of the day, all electors listed at all the polling stations would have been afforded an opportunity to exercise their franchise.
Voting continued smoothly across the country and no major incidents were reported.
This is our import into Guyana. If you want the right person, you want to see the right things happen, you're going to come and vote for that person. And the values that they have that you are coincided with, that's why we came, to make sure that we have a say.
International observers invited to witness the process fanned out to different parts of the country.
The atmosphere everywhere has been professional, even positive in this sense. I didn't feel any and didn't see any problems so far.
We were here at the South Rhine Belt Secondary School in Georgetown, where the head of the Organization of American States Observer Mission, Mr. Bruce Golding, is leading the delegation to observe polling places here to see about the conduct of these elections. Retired Justice Claudette Singh is also visiting the South Rheinveld Secondary School where polls are happening. She too has been going around and checking and making sure that things are okay. So 6 hours after polls opened, any major reports of any incidents?
No, not as yet. Nothing. And I don't expect anything. I expect everything would be going very smoothly because the POs and everybody, the staff was well trained.
Thank you very much, Sharon. As the day went along, peace prevailed, and from that smooth process, there was expectation that the tabulation of the votes would be smooth and results would come in early.
It is not good to have an election on Monday and several days can pass before the people of Guyana know what the outcome of those elections are. That is courting mistrust. It is providing fertile ground for rumors and conspiracy theories and so on. And in our discussions with GECOM, we certainly urge them to do everything possible to complete the tabulation and to have the results declared as early as possible. We'll have to wait to see what happens after today.
We are out here at the F.E. Pollard Primary School, one of the polling places on David Street in Keety, Georgetown. We're moments away before the polls are closed at 6 p.m.
At the appointed time, polls closed, and we spoke with U.S. Ambassador Sarah Ann Lynch, who had managed to visit several polling stations in different regions of the country.
I started early in the morning, and I went to many regions. I was kind of a roaming observer today. So I was in the Essequibo, in Bartica, in Linden, in Skeldon, Rose Hall in New Amsterdam, and I ended the day in Georgetown. So it really was a full day watching the whole process in many polling stations. You know, honestly, it was a very smooth process today.
Down at the Elections Command Center, they were pleased at the way voting ended.
It was indeed a grand day. It was a day which all Guyana was looking forward to. And of course, it was a long journey, but now we are almost at the end of that journey.
Statements would be received by returning officers who will all commence a public verification process, which includes the public display of each statement in every district. And that process will continue until all the statements for those particular districts are concluded. Once that's completed, the returning officers will declare the results in the respective districts.
The Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, was bold enough to project that by lunch the day after elections, substantial results would be in. Welcome to our continuing coverage of Elections 2020. Good morning. It's Tuesday, the day after Guyana voted on Monday. Over 660,000 persons were registered to vote yesterday, early turnout, and now everyone is anxiously awaiting the results. If you think that we have any results, the answer is no. We are awaiting word from the Guyana Elections Commission on those results. They have informed us that there will be a press conference sometime between 11 to 1 p.m. today.
We still gotta live. Who win, who lose, we still gotta work hard. So I still gotta from my boots. Boots to 2,500. I still gotta from my boots, so still gotta sell.
We don't know later in the day, you know, what's gonna take place. Remember later in the day, I may get quite a few results, you know. So I don't know what's going to take place that time.
Those substantial results the day after elections, the Chief Elections Officer promised, never came true. Just a handful was available at the time.
Well, a lot of we have not received all the results And so, but we will endeavor to do it as early as possible. That is all I can say at this time.
We all want results as quickly as possible, but of course we want credible and accurate results. And so therefore that's the important thing. So everybody just needs to be patient and let GECOM do what GECOM needs to do.
By the evening, however, the vote count began to be declared in some of the country's most remote regions, the ones that were always seen as the ones that would be difficult to have early results. First up, Region 8, deep in the Pacaraima Mountains at the center of Guyana.
I know it's been a long day. As promised from the inception, I would have promised my CEO that I'm going to declare on E+1, which is today. Although we had some delays earlier in terms of the inclement weather, but I still managed to have the results with me, all the SOPs in my possession.
Then there was Region 1 at the top of Guyana there in Mabaruma. And there was Region 9 in Letem, deep in the Rupununi at the border with Brazil. And so the results began to be declared one after the other in the regions. But for Region 4, problems. The next morning, March 4th, the vote count in that region would be put on hold.
The returning officer for Region 4, Mr. Claremont Mingo, is being rushed to the hospital from the GECOM Media Center at Hatfield and High Street, Georgetown. Mr. Mingo apparently has been sick since this morning. When the count for Region 4 was supposed to be continued at 9 a.m., it has now been delayed.
The verification process, which was adjourned abruptly last night at about 9 p.m. to resume this morning at 9 a.m. has not yet begun and has not yet resumed, and is now after 11.
Meanwhile, in the other regions, such as in Region 3, results were being declared.
At this moment here, I'm going to declare the final results of the general and regional elections held in District 3 on the 2nd of March 2020.
The transparency of the election with respect to the party scrutineers from the major political parties is a good bedrock of transparency on which these elections are built. And that transparency should continue and must continue throughout the tabulation and reporting process to ensure that that level of transparency is maintained.
The mission concludes that the March 2nd, 2020 poll was free, fair and transparent, and the mission expects that the results of the poll will reflect the free expression of the will and aspirations of the Guyanese people for a government of their choice.
Back in town, it turns out nothing serious with Claremont Mingo, the returning officer for Region 4, who had been taken to the hospital in stretcher. Here, he is walking out a short while after. Now, the country was in for a bizarre turn of events. First, let me explain what happens at every polling station. Once voting ends at 6 p.m., the votes are then tabulated. Once it is tabulated, a statement of poll is produced at every single polling place and posted outside the polling station. There were 2,339 of those. All the statements from a particular district are then sent to one central location where they are tabulated, and the winner of that particular electoral district is then declared. And so it is those statements of poll, the original copies of which are given to political parties, that should be used in tabulating the votes of any particular electoral district. That process went smoothly in Region 4, the largest electoral district, until the afternoon of Wednesday, March 4th. What appeared almost like magic at that time was a spreadsheet which GECOM officials said contained the figures from the statements of poll. No one believed it. No one saw that spreadsheet being prepared. Especially could they not believe it when the numbers being called from the spreadsheet did not accurately represent what was on the statements of poll, copies of which they had received from those polling stations. Take one example.
4109, Annual 3, Acting Plus AFC 133, CG 2, LJP 3, PPPC 206, PRP 3, PCI 2, TNM 0, URP 0, 352.
And this case was multiplied many times over. The parties objected to the use of the spreadsheet with fictitious numbers, and it was determined that the process would go back to how it was done before. But then, more drama. We would be in for a very long night.
They put two persons. After protracted delay, the persons worked for less than 2 hours, and suddenly they got tired. And all they're doing, they're sitting in a conditioned room, and all they're doing is calling information from a sheet of paper. Men and women cut cane in this country under boiling sun from 6 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They are in an air-conditioned room, reading from two pieces of paper, and after 2 hours they get tired. Isn't that overwhelming for your intellect? Isn't that overwhelming?
I was sitting there, and I'm telling you, then when they started over the system, it was highly efficient. They were calling it out, it was being projected on the screen, and everybody was agreeing with it, and it was amazing. I was actually proud of the system that I was watching at. And then after about an hour, the girl asked, she said, let's take a 15-minute break. Everybody took a 15-minute break. When she came back and they started again, within 10 minutes, she said, I'm closing it down and we're starting again tomorrow. And I was like, what?
Did you have a process in place where you had a rotation of staff to do the work that you need to get done?
We always have. Today, we started the day, and the RO, who is the statutory officer, took ill. He was hospitalized. The conduct of the process relies on statutory officers. He is ill, he's gone to recoup tomorrow. I continue the process with 2 other officers, 2, to push the process. One, as you know, you saw her, she is with child, and she is left. It's just a bad day.
So you're looking for somebody new now?
And that is why I'm here, and that's why I'm saying to you from the outset, that is why I'm here.
Well, are your party agents prepared to continue for the rest of the night?
But I don't know, I don't see anybody here. I just came back, I haven't seen anyone.
You don't have party agents here?
No, I don't have party agents here. I don't see anyone here. So I don't know what you mean by party agents. I'm the party agent.
The persons to sit in the verification process.
But I don't see anybody in there.
So what?
I wasn't here, you knew I left.
No, you haven't seen anybody in there, but would you be in favor of the process continuing throughout?
But how can you continue the process and there's no one there?
Would you ask for them to come?
Ask for them to come?
Yes, so the process can go throughout the night.
To when was it adjourned?
About
9 in the morning, they said.
Oh, what's good time?
You don't have a problem with that?
No, why have a problem?
But what about the delay?
Who took the adjournment?
It was agreed that this process
Who
will
took the
continue
adjournment?
through the night.
Who took the adjournment?
That was. It seems to be a call that was made by the GECOM officials.
So you say I don't have the facts. I came back here. I saw all the
In this election is called the mother of all elections. Are you satisfied with how this process is going, Mr. Attorney General?
Which process? We had a clean election. GECOM conducted the election cleanly. We won the election. We have our statement claims. Bye-bye.
Now I should state for the record that when we restarted the process, the GECOM CEO had said the process would continue unhindered until the entire of Region 4 was counted. We all agreed to this, and we all agreed to a long night.
So, Mr. Ban, do you see then realistically the process continuing tonight?
I hope it will continue tonight, because the longer it takes, is the more anxiety it would engender. And frankly, we want to get a position where we could tell the country what the position is.
We've been waiting for about 2 hours for a DRO to be here so that the count could resume. A DRO is here and has been here for some time. We were waiting on Mr. Lowenfield to get back. Mr. Lowenfield now says it's not his desire to use that DRO. I don't know which DRO he wishes to use. The law provides that a DRO conducted. His desire doesn't factor into the law.
It's way past midnight, and they are still waiting here. Everybody here are waiting because they want the verification process to continue. We're going to try to talk with Mr. Anil Nandlal, who has now emerged.
What exactly, from your understanding, is transpiring?
This is one of the few moments in my life where I'm lost for words.
We're going to try to talk with Rhonda Lamb and from the Citizenship Initiative. She's also on the wait list as well here tonight.
What has happened? The CEO has returned, and at this point we're all waiting because he had given us a commitment earlier that the process would restart once we secured the necessary GECOM staff. As far as I'm aware, there is one staff available, but that process has not started as yet.
This process is holding up the entire country, and it seems to me that for some reason or the other, GECOM and GECOM's incompetence is holding it back.
This is the height of madness. The height of madness. And it's not even being done in a sensible way, in a polished way. Mr. Lowenfield is just embarrassing himself, and he's making a mockery of this commission and the constitutional independence which this commission has. Clearly, the role of the CEO is to facilitate the process, to ensure that the process is concluded in a timely manner, in accordance with law, and with the integrity of the process intact. What we are witnessing here is that the person who has that responsibility seems to be undermining, frustrating, and defeating that process.
We want a fair election in this country, and I'm afraid that what GECOM has done tonight, it jeopardizes this entire country. And if we are talking about a fair election, what took place today, you would have heard the stories. I don't need to speak and repeat what was said already. And we're asking GECOM to resolve this issue as soon as possible. This is not good enough. And having heard all of that, that is all I want to say to GECOM. Fix this and fix this fast.
We have also committed, all the parties here and the observers, that we're staying in that room and we'll be in that room observing and watching as long as it takes to have those results declared.
We have a new and united Guyana. There was the Citizenship Initiative and other party representatives who have expressed frustration with what has been happening here for the past couple of hours, more than a couple of hours. In fact, I don't even remember when we first came here. It must have been around 9 o'clock or so.
For the rest of the night, the best that we can do is to guard the information that is contained in the structure and ensure that none of it leaves this building. The international observers are present in and out of the room, and they're obviously taking notes, and they're very, very aware of what's going on or what seems to be attempted.
Dramatic events, really, as there has been another suspension of the verification of results for this region. The story now is that the technical officer who was displaying data on the screen left the room with the computer and the data on it. The parties are concerned about that.
There is absolutely no reason why this region could not have been concluded. And I don't know what the plan is. We all have the results. We have shared our results with the world, all the international community, all the observer teams have it. So I don't know what is the game plan, what's the purpose of this? Because no matter what they do, they cannot undo the results. They know the results, they have it, and we have made ours public, and we're going to make it public tomorrow. When I say public, I mean public to the press.
More dramatic developments this evening. As we reported, shortly after the process for the resumption of the verification of results for region number 4 commenced, one of the officials of GECOM complained of feeling tired, and he left the room with a laptop and a flash drive containing the data that was being verified. Now that stunned the observers and political party leaders observing the process and in fact doing the process of verification. Now things changed dramatically after that happened, because some persons reported seeing the official in another room with the data, working on the computer. They've made allegations, which we will not get into, but they said they saw him working on the laptop when he complained of feeling tired and said he needed to go home. It is unclear who called in the police, but we saw a number of police officers, including a subdivisional commander, come out of the building. There were what appeared to be officers of the Criminal Investigations Department also inside the building. The officers questioning persons who were in the room at the time the young man walked out with the laptop and the flash drive. That young man is also in the room where the police are questioning those who saw exactly what transpired.
He went over to the computer, he turned off the projector, then he was taking the flash drive and we were working with out of the computer. He then informed us that he was exhausted, that we would have to leave, and we said, after this, he took the SOPs that they were working on.
They're taking some statements about what has happened, because it really was unusual in the circumstances. It might even be sinister that the person got up, removed the flash drive, took it away to another room and was working on it on a computer.
Chief Elections Officer of the Commission just arrived with a party of policemen and walked straight into the building. He did not offer any comments to the media. Political party leaders say they were trying to contact him after the situation developed. When Mr. Lowenfield left here earlier, he gave the assurance that personnel were put in place to continue the verification process. That is the concern of political party leaders and observers. They want this process to go on tonight regardless of what happens, because the declaration of the results of Region 4 hangs in the balance at the moment. It is the only result left to declare the March 2nd, 2020 elections.
The process of transparent process of closure that is statute that you have to, why are all your officers say, why you don't take over the chief officer and do it, declare the result? Why you don't do that? Then you fall in there, you don't get nobody in the whole country, and they will, no, I don't ask the question.
We're at GECOM headquarters at about 1:30 in the morning Guyana time, and here's the CEO, who is being quite obstructionist, to use a quite charming word. He's been quite obstructionist.
So we're trying to find out what is happening here. There are police officers, a van load of riot police just arriving on the scene, the headquarters of GECOM for these elections, the GECOM Command Center, the office of the returning officer. You can see in the distance the police lined up there. So the remaining police officers are leaving the office of the returning officer for Region 4. You can see them there leaving. They were called in after a staffer left the room where verification was taking place, saying he was tired and wanted to go home, but instead he was noticed in an adjacent room with the laptop and flash drive of the statements of polls which were being verified. So as we are mentioning, the police officers seem to be leaving this building.
The police came. They did not enter the room where the operations are taking place. They did not take the flash drive, which was, I think, a sensible thing. So the flash drive is there, the computers are there. There was some controversy because the computer opened at a particular page, and some people felt that there was something sinister about that. But that, I think that matter blew over. The CEO is there, and we are making arrangements on when we will resume, at what hour this morning we will resume.
Mr. Schumer, you can explain to us what's happening in that room.
Well, what's happening in that room is I came out to stretch, and you guys are out here.
What is happening? Is there any movement to resolve the issue?
Yes, there is some movement. We've actually looked at the data that was in the computer. There seems to have been data entered incorrectly without anyone's knowledge into the Georgetown sections, and we have brought that to the attention of the CEO. It seems as though the entire Georgetown votes were populated without any verification or anyone looking at it, and the data that actually existed for Georgetown is in contradiction to what the SOPs actually said. The exact numbers, I cannot give you that. But at this point, we have asked the CEO for a printout of everything that has transpired in Region 4 to this point, and that way all of us could go through our verification process. When that is done, we are satisfied with where we're at, then we are going to close off for the night and return at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, I wouldn't say for the night. I hear the kiss kitties and all that stuff starting already. So close off for a quick nap, go and freshen up, and then come back and restart at 9.
But I just want to let you know that my expectations are that you will do not only responsible reporting, because you have to because you represent an organization, be OAS or whatever, you have to report to them. But I just hope that we won't have, let me just give an example to say, okay, one side is not accepting the results or the other side, at this point in time I didn't get anybody to say this. Right? So I just thought that, because I've been hearing from my colleagues different, and as somebody see me, they say you must be everything else but predictable. But I'm just telling you what I feel. I just thought I'd clip it to the bottom.
We cannot use time and separation of supposed development as an excuse for Guyana. Prime Minister Arthur made a point. There's a process, and the process needs to work. This is our process. Let our process work. As simple as that. Let us get on with it.
And there's one other thing, which is this is the GECOM. Is it appropriate for you to be having this meeting with us in this building?
No, but I would say at this fast, we want to say hello and to, I don't know what you want to say.
No.
Yeah, but because if I can be myself, one person says this, but they heard something, I don't want to repeat it here because of ethical reasons. And they said, if you have to take their accreditation, do so. But I said, no, we can't do that. So I said, let me listen.
What?
As a member of the Bar Association, I think we should stop.
Yes.
I think you should stop.
Yes, so I
just
stop.
Giving avenue to exit.
I speak on behalf of the Commonwealth, the largest concentration of people in the world.
Yes.
And I am not going to have, not me, the Commonwealth disrespected by a threat to take away the registration of the Commonwealth. I can speak to the Commonwealth. I'm going further. I'm going to speak to the Commonwealth Secretary General shortly. She's ready to speak to me. And I have a duty to her to report accurately.
Absolutely.
And I cannot now avoid speaking accurately.
Absolutely. I agree.
So that if you apologize, because I'm attending, not.
Hello.
Then you take it away, but give you back.
That's right.
Because good people have never done this to me yet. And I will not take it.
All right, thank you. I'm coming out. Yes. Thank you.
This is
unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Please, this building, this room is not the time for any sort of meeting to discuss or
Why were we invited to come here to speak and be threatened to take our badges away if we don't conduct ourselves properly? This is unacceptable.
I hope you are aware that you have in the room the American ambassador here. You have the head of the Commonwealth, and I'm saying that it is very disrespectful to make that express.
Yes, I was invited here. We were invited here.
happening in Guyana. This man is declaring the results. This man is declaring illegal results without verifying statement of poll. That's what this man is doing right now. That is what this man is doing. Everybody is here, unison chanting. Everybody. Look what is happening here. Oh my goodness, I can't. Everyone, the whole. This is what is happening.
Despite the protest, Mr. Mingo went ahead and made his declaration bearing the signature of Walter Lawrence, the only party representative to sign.
And AFC have come to tell you thanks. We covered all of the regions. We laid out our plans. We know what we stand for and you support us. Over the next 5 years, we are going to make life better for you.
Afternoon AFC tonight are celebrating a farcical, fraudulent victory.
We believe that the elections have been seized and hijacked, and that the processes that has followed is not consistent with that of GECOM or with the constitutional requirements.
GECOM, led by Mingo and cohorts, have hijacked the system. They have tried to undermine the democratic process, and there is no harm in a country greater than electoral fraud.
This is an embarrassment. This entire process that we've all sat here and witnessed as a democratic nation, as the entire world has watched this emerging oil giant have its first elections after such a monumental discovery. To be sitting here at this table now and speaking on the brink of a dictatorship.
Please take your rubbish and leave.
The police is in here now and they're putting me out.
So we have heavily armed ranks that are coming in here now to. We have heavily armed ranks that are here to physically remove us from here.
If they leave, arrest them. If you fail to leave, they arrest him. So they're coming right squad and they say we have to leave. Yeah, but they're moving me out the place now. They're not telling you, so if you come to the yeah, I tell you, let me get some lights. I take up these lights. Take down. What? When the people have come out of the place, people go out, yeah, just walk them out. Just walk them out.
Can I get those lights?
Sorry, no, you need to exit. Just collect these stuff. You should have been doing that long ago. Bring the time for waste doing that long ago. I don't have time for wasting this stupidness. No problem, sir. What? The commander told us
You're a politician officer?
Okay, let's go. Come on. The commander told us to stay under we was told to stay here by
So you're being physically removed from the building?
Again, we're in front of the Guyana Elections Commission's command center at High and Hatfield Street, Georgetown. This time, the building is closed and secured by police officers. When we first got here a few moments ago, we were told that we were not allowed to come too close to the building.
We were here earlier tonight and they pushed about 6 of us outside, bring the police, put 6 of us outside and lock the gate. And the gate, it is unsecure, and I'm here with another security here to make sure that no one get in and move our SOP on the table.
We're coming to you again from the corners of Avenue the Republic and Burnham in Georgetown, a short distance away from the GECOM command center located in Region 4. The crowd here has grown a lot from since the last time we gave you an update from this area. However, a few minutes ago we spoke to a lawyer and candidate for the People's Progressive Party Civic, Mr. Sanjeev Datadin, who said that the party was able to serve letters to more than one deputy returning officers for Region 4 calling for a recount of this region.
As by requirement, requests for recount were filed by noon, but Mr. Mingo said no. On the east coast of Demerara, protests erupted.
This has nothing to do with race, it has nothing to do with power. It is just our fight about democracy. We're not here for violence.
In Berbice, protests also erupted. A school bus was attacked, causing injuries to several children. Police officers were also attacked. A 19-year-old man was shot dead by the police. In the meantime, the opposition leader moved to the court to challenge the declaration by Mr. Mingo, saying he had breached the country's electoral laws. The Chief Justice agreed and made her ruling on March 11th, pointing out what is at stake.
I must lament that it's particularly saddening that 19 years after the Hamilton case, the words of Chief Justice Bernard as follows still ring true. I quote, "The role of the Elections Commission and its staff is to take such action as appears necessary to ensure impartiality, fairness and compliance with the provisions of the Constitution and any other acts of Parliament. In the present volatile situation which pervades our country, no effort must be spared to assure everyone that the process was fair and impartial. Lingering doubts that hang like a sword of Damocles over the head of the Commission must be removed. Confidence in the electoral process must be restored. This is essential. This is absolutely essential if we as a nation are to move forward and strive to heal the wounds that divide us."
People have to understand that there is a democracy at work. And when political parties lose an election, they have to accept the results.
Live outside of the GECOM Command Center, the office of the Returning Officer for Electoral District Number 4. Just to give you an update on what is happening, the actual process has not yet commenced for the tabulation of the statements of poll. There was a bit of confusion inside the office there with the returning officer saying that he will use the spreadsheets that were generated, he said, from the statements of poll. Observers and party agents objected, saying that the ruling of the Chief Justice on Wednesday was very clear that any tabulation should be done from the statements of poll. We understand that the returning officer was insisting that what he has on his spreadsheet was derived from his statements of poll, and of course the objection ensued. We understand that the chair of the Elections Commission, Justice Claudette Singh, has arrived, and she may be speaking with those inside at some point. We're not sure if she's begun doing that. What we know is that the returning officer, Mr. Claremont Mingo, has taken a break in order to consult, he said, the ruling of the Chief Justice made on Wednesday. You would recall that the Chief Justice made it very clear that Mr. Mingo was to commence this process by 11 this morning, whether to continue tabulating the statements of poll from where it was left off. 421 were tabulated at the point when the process was aborted. So she said he can go all back from the start or continue from where he left off. It was up to him, but he had to ensure that the persons who are entitled to be there on the law should be there, and those persons included candidates from the party, commissioners of the Guyana Elections Commission, and other persons he deems fit to be there, which included the international and foreign observers. So Mr. Mingo has said he is taking a 10-minute break in order to check back on what the Chief Justice said. So situation still unfolding here. The process has not yet recommenced for the tabulation of the statements of poll for District Number 4. The chair of the Elections Commission suspended the process until she could get a copy of the ruling.
Any attempt to be able to stall the process or any attempt to be able to obfuscate the process is one that runs against the spirit of the Chief Justice's judgment. And it is against this background that we pray that even though a statute puts the power in the hands of a returning officer, that returning officer will understand that he holds in his hands the future and stability of Guyana as we go forward.
The Friday, 2 days after the ruling, the parties were back in court after the opposition leader moved to the court with contempt proceedings, which carry a jail term against Mr. Mingo. But the Chief Justice sent them all in a room to work the matter out. They were unable to, and so they were back in the courtroom. The Chief Justice, this time, was able to get an undertaking that the law would be followed.
She said the SOP must be seen, observed by the parties.
And the parties present, she did.
And the parties present have their role at that process. And that is what we have been asking, struggling, fighting, and canvassing for.
Justice Singh, are you pleased with the outcome of today's hearing?
Of course.
Do you expect your returning officer to comply with the order of the court?
Of course, yes, it's the order of the court.
Can I ask you, what do you understand the judge to be saying regarding the statements of poll?
It was a consensual agreement.
Which is that the statements of poll would be displayed?
Yes.
Despite that undertaken, the very afternoon, what was engineered was a hurried process that again did not follow the law. We can begin this evening outside of the Guyana Elections Commission headquarters on High Street. You would recall that the tabulation of statements of poll for Region Number 4 were being done at a building at High and Hatfield Streets, the Ashman's building. However, after developments at the High Court, which we can report on a little bit later, the process was shifted here because the Guyana Elections Commission said it had a projector readily available at this location so that it could put statements of poll on a screen so that parties and observers could see. But as it turns out, that process was again drowned in controversy.
There is no understanding or no visual in relation to the SOPs that are being displayed on the screen.
So it's on the screen, but you can't see it.
It's on the screen and it's blurred. And we would not participate in a process whereby we cannot identify numbers so that we can compare them with SOPs that we have. As such, we have withdrawn.
What is happening in there is a blatant attempt at rigging an election and pushing some foisting an unlawful process down the throats of Guyanese, even though the Chief Justice has spoken explicitly on this matter.
The following day, Saturday, March 14th, it was back in the court. The High Court was sanitizing because of COVID-19, and so the Chief Justice took her court sitting to the Diamond Magistrates Court. Before the purpose of that sitting could be established, word came that the Caribbean Community CARICOM had agreed to send a high-level team to supervise a national recount. The process was initiated by President David Granger and supported by the opposition leader, Bharat Jagdeo.
Look, this is a political situation. While we are trying to get it legally addressed, it is also there are legal issues as well. One can't turn a blind eye to the political realities that are operating in the circumstances here. And if the politicians, in their wisdom, have come to a political solution, then it is incumbent upon GECOM to facilitate and not frustrate that process.
The CARICOM team was organized that very Saturday, March 14th, and they flew in less than 24 hours later. Good morning, my name is Neil Marks and this is the newsroom. We're coming to you live from the Artichon Conference Centre, where the national recount of votes cast in the March 2nd polls will be conducted. On Sunday, the Guyana Elections Commission, along with a CARICOM high-level team, made an agreement that this facility could be used for the recount. This morning, a team from GECOM and the high-level team were here at the conference center. What they were trying to figure out is how exactly the setup will work this morning. The conference center has the big dome that is unlikely to be used. On the bottom and second floors, there are various meeting rooms. So they're trying to decide if they will use the meeting rooms and the 5 stations will be locked away in there, or whether they will come out in the open and use that arrangement. That's what Mr. Robeson, then one of the commissioners on GECOM, told us this morning after he left this facility. So there probably will have to be a meeting at GECOM to decide on the final arrangements. But it seems likely that the national recount will begin today. It could perhaps start after lunch. Hello, good evening. This is the newsroom for today, March 16, 2020. We're reporting from outside the Artichon Conference Centre, where a national recount of votes cast in the March 2nd general and regional elections should have commenced, but it has not. Of course, there's a vigil by both sides tonight, guarding from the outside party agents in the inside, looking at those containers, making sure that nobody gets in there until this national recount of the votes cast on March 2nd are recounted with a high-level supervisory team from the CARICOM Secretariat. CARICOM, really, they were pulled together by the chairman of CARICOM, Mia Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, at the invitation of the President and the approval of the opposition leader. So, as we have been reporting, the process has not started because the Guyana Elections Commission is awaiting a signed document by the President, the opposition leader, and the CARICOM Secretariat to say that they basically agreed to this and that they will go ahead with it. But while they waited for the go-ahead, a candidate under the APNU plus AFC list that the President himself heads was successful in getting the court to block the recount under the argument that CARICOM could not supervise the recount process. The CARICOM team packed up and left. Parties appealed the decision to the full court, with Chief Justice George and Nareshwar Harnanan. That court ruled on March 31st that the laws provide for GECOM to decide how it will carry out its work, and that while the CARICOM team would supervise the process, GECOM was overall in control.
It's been a long time since I've heard such a definitive ruling, a decision that was so well structured despite the short space of time that was given. I will be presumptuous and say that if I were in the difficult seat of a judge, that is a judgment I would have been proud to deliver. I found it was impeccable.
The Guyana Elections Commission on April 3rd therefore decided that it will proceed with a national vote recount, even though the matter went to the Court of Appeal. That court ruled that GECOM could not hand over supervisory powers to the CARICOM team, or any team for that matter, but it did not block GECOM from moving ahead with its business. With the ruling of the court in mind, GECOM set about making preparations for the recount. On Friday, May 1st, almost a month after GECOM decided on the recount, a new CARICOM team arrived in the country to act as scrutineers, the main ones to sign off on the credibility of the recount. With the vote recount imminent, there are still burning questions. How would it be done? How long would it last? Would it be another fraudulent process? Or would it run smoothly and finally allow the real winner of the March 2nd elections to be declared and allow the country to move on in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic and prepare for the recovery when it is all over?